You don't have to go far. Just turn back time 300,000 years, and you'll find yourself on a completely different Earth. No cities, no highways, no lights, no satellites. Only ice, volcanoes, endless forests, and winds that howl day and night. This was not a human planet. It was a kingdom ruled by nature. Europe lay buried under glaciers. Africa burned beneath dry deserts. The Siberian plains stretched into frozen seas where woolly mammoths, ancient rhinos, and saber-toothed cats wandered like prehistoric ghosts. Humans, or more precisely, Homo sapiens, had just arrived. Small, clawless, fangless, armed with nothing but a mind and two bare hands. We weren't at the top of the food chain. We were nothing, but we survived. And if you truly want to understand what happened in those brutal first moments of our species, then first, meet the creatures that once ruled this planet, the ones history tried to erase. Part 2. Pelorovis, the giant cattle of Africa. Across the African savannas today, you'll see antelope, zebras, and wild buffalo. But 200,000 years ago, one creature stood above them all. Heavier than a ton, with massive curved horns like scythes, Pelorovis. This was no direct ancestor of modern cattle. It belonged to an ancient, separate branch, larger, older, and designed to survive a prehistoric hellscape. Pelorovis stood nearly 2 meters tall and weighed twice as much as a modern bull. Its horns could reach up to 2 meters long, arching outward, like the war horns of a forgotten god. When it crossed the savanna, even lions kept their distance. On the rocks of the Sahara, early humans painted Pelorovis in charcoal and red earth, not to record, but to remember, to fear, or to beg for mercy. Because when humans were still small, Pelorovis was the giant that made them look up. Part 3. Macrauchenia, the camel-elephant hybrid that shouldn't exist. Imagine a creature that looks like a prank by nature, the body of a camel, the neck of a giraffe, and a nose like a baby elephant. That was Macrauchenia, the bizarre beast that once ruled South America. Not a horse, not an elephant, not a camel. Macrauchenia came from an entirely separate branch of evolution, the Litopterna, creatures isolated on a drifting continent, evolving in complete solitude for millions of years. Its strange nose, rising from the center of its face, was its secret weapon. It could sniff danger from afar, regulate body heat in the tropical heat, and possibly even help with underwater foraging. For centuries, scientists were baffled by its shape. It wasn't until 2017 that paleontologists finally unlocked its ancient DNA from fossils in Patagonia, revealing that its closest living relatives are horses. But no matter how strange or clever it was, Macrauchenia couldn't escape the deadliest predator on Earth, us. And when Homo sapiens arrived in South America, Macrauchenia's path ended. Part 4. Nothrotheriops, the giant ground sloth of North America. Before sloth became a symbol of cute laziness, it was something far more majestic. In the most literal sense, Nothrotheriops, the giant ground sloth, stood over 2 meters tall and once roamed the deserts we now call Arizona and Nevada. It didn't hang from trees. It didn't nibble forest leaves. It walked slowly across stone valleys, feeding on yucca, cactus, and even razor-sharp agave. We know this not from guesswork, but from fossilized dung. Inside the Rampart Cave in the Grand Canyon, scientists discovered coprolites packed with plant matter. This wasn't a dung creature. It was a desert survivalist. But the most surprising thing about Nothrotheriops isn't what it ate, it's when it lived. Some coprolite samples are just 11,000 years old, meaning this giant walked the Earth at the same time as the first humans in the Americas. There was no asteroid, no volcano, just stone-tipped spears and group hunting tactics. And that was enough. Sometimes, extinction doesn't come with an explosion. Sometimes, all it takes is a slow step in the wrong direction. Part 5. Sivifarium, the deer with godlike horns. Before elephants, buffalo, or lions ruled the grasslands, there was Civatherium, a creature that didn't dominate with speed or savagery, but with a divine appearance that could make even humans bow. Standing over 3 meters tall and weighing more than a ton, Civatherium had 2 pairs of horns, one set like a giraffe, another curled and powerful like a moose's crown. It looked like a creature painted onto the walls of a Hindu temple. And in ancient India, it was. They called it the beast of Shiva, god of destruction and creation. It lived across dry forests from North Africa to the Indian subcontinent, feeding on soft branches, tree leaves, and tough grasses. A sacred beast, but a practical one. And then, it vanished. No grand battle, no epic extinction, just silence. What remains are carvings on stone, temple statues, and perhaps a trace of its bloodline in today's giraffes. We killed the god of the wild, and now all that's left is the memory of reverence. Part 6, Gigantopithecus, the giant ape of the deep forest. In the rainforests of ancient Southeast Asia, there once walked a creature twice the size of a human, weighing half a ton, moving silently like a shadow among the towering trees. Its name was Gigantopithecus, the largest ape to ever walk the earth. We've never found a complete skeleton, only fossilized teeth and jaw fragments. But even those are enough to reconstruct a giant, one that ate bamboo, crushed roots, and lived in quiet solitude like a forest monk made of muscle and silence. No one ever hunted it. There's no evidence it ever killed anything. Gigantopithecus was no monster. It was the last gentle giant of the ape lineage. But legends are never kind. People called it the Yeti, Bigfoot. They projected fear onto it, because nothing terrifies us more than something massive and silent. When the forests vanished and Homo erectus spread across the land, Gigantopithecus did not fight. It simply stepped back into the shadows and never returned. An age ended. No roar, no blood, only the absolute silence of a creature that knew how to live without conquering. Art 7, Vorumbi Titan, the giant bird that couldn't fly. Before ostriches, before humans ever stepped foot on the island, Vorumbi Titan was the living symbol of Madagascar. Over 3 meters tall, nearly 1 ton in weight, it was the largest bird to ever walk the earth. It didn't fly. It didn't need claws or fangs. Its body was its weapon. Legs like stone pillars held up its massive frame. A small head, a thick neck. Each step echoed like a drumbeat across the plains. No predator dared to challenge it, because none were big enough to try. Vorumbi didn't hunt. It thrived on fruits, leaves, and hard seeds, a vegetarian titan striding through the grasslands like a gentle deity. But then humans came. They weren't bigger, but they had fire, they had traps, and they had hunger. Within a few short centuries, the giant bird was gone, not because it was weak, but because it never understood what had arrived. A new kind of predator, one that walked on 2 legs, armed with intelligence and an empty stomach. Part 8, Homo therium, the saber-toothed cat of the entire world. When people hear saber-toothed cat, they usually think of Smilodon, the silent killer with dagger-like fangs. But if Smilodon was a lone assassin, then Homo therium was a global warrior, smart, agile, and trained to hunt in formation. Its teeth were shorter, thicker, not for stabbing, but for slicing cleanly through the throat. One cut was enough. No brute force, just precision. Homo therium wasn't the feline of a single continent. Fossils of this cat have been found across North America, Europe, and Asia, from the frozen plains of Alaska to the sun-scorched deserts of Africa. But what made it truly terrifying? It cooperated, like wolves, not like cats. In a few caves, evidence remains of a fateful encounter. Homo erectus, armed with stone axes and fire, facing Homo therium, armed with saber teeth and pack tactics. Who won? We don't know. Only this, Homo vanished, and Homo erectus kept writing history. Part 9. Metridocarus, the warthog with knives for horns. Don't let the word pig fool you. Metridocarus was no farm hog. It wasn't even your average wild boar. It was a survivor of the African inferno, a beast that roamed the cracked deserts and scorched grasslands, wielding 2 pairs of tusks curled like scimitars, reaching toward the sky like a warning carved in bone. And those tusks? Not for show. They were weapons, built for goring, slicing, and holding off death. In places like Olduvai Gorge, where Homo erectus once hunted, Metridocarus was prey, but never easy prey. Standing over 1 meter tall and weighing close to 250 kilograms, it fought when cornered. One charge could shatter a femur. One twist of the head could rip open a careless hunter's belly. It ate everything: dry roots, tough grass, even rotting meat. Survival didn't care about manners. And humans? They knew better than to underestimate it. Part 10. Meolania, the armored turtle of Oceania. Not a sea turtle. Not a gentle pond dweller. Meolania was a walking tank, over 2 meters long, half a ton in weight, with horns behind its skull and a tail armed with bone spikes like a medieval mace. Its head was a fortress, eyes protected by bone, a short, thick neck that couldn't retract because it didn't need to. Its tail, long, armored, ending in a spiked club, ready to swing at any attacker's face. It didn't run. It held its ground. On remote islands like Lord Howe and New Caledonia, Meolania lived in peace for millions of years. No predators, no need to evolve. Until humans came, Homo sapiens brought dogs, fire, and hunger. To them, Meolania wasn't a warrior. It was the easiest meal on the island. Slow, flightless, and too trusting of its isolation. Within a few centuries, the spiked turtle vanished, not because it was weak, but because it had never faced an enemy who could set traps. And Lee. Part 11. Megaloceros, the tree-antlered deer of the Ice Age forest. Antlers 3.6 meters wide, spreading like ancient branches through the morning mist. Megaloceros giganteus wasn't just a giant deer, it was a living sculpture of the Ice Age. Standing nearly 2.2 meters at the shoulder and weighing close to half a ton, it didn't fight like a rhino. It didn't hunt like a saber-tooth. It grazed on tender grasses and soft leaves and stunned the world with its presence alone. On the cave walls of Lascaux and Chauvet, our ancestors painted it with radiant antlers, like sacred relics. They didn't just see prey, they saw something to revere, but reverence didn't save it. Megaloceros was hunted for meat, hide, and glory. Yet extinction didn't come solely from human hands. As the climate warmed, forests replaced open plains. Those magnificent antlers, once a symbol of power, became a burden. Too wide to maneuver through dense woods, too heavy for a shrinking world. And as the last glaciers melted, the tree-antlered deer faded into memory, leaving behind a silence and a hole in the ancient imagination. Part 12. Aurochs, the primal cattle painted on stone. Before dairy cows, before oxen plowed fields, before villages and agriculture, there was the aurochs, Bos primigenius, a towering black shadow roaming the grasslands of ancient Europe, weighing over a ton, standing nearly 2 meters tall, with horns long and sharp as warnings carved into flesh. It was never domesticated. No pens, no ropes, only wilderness and raw instinct. The aurochs was the peak of wild cattle, the ancestor of every modern breed, but stronger, fiercer, and unyielding. In the cave art of Lascaux, it wasn't merely drawn, it was burned into stone with charcoal and fear. Every line was a confrontation, every stance a challenge. To bring down an aurochs wasn't just to gain meat and hide, it was a rite of passage, a legend retold by firelight. Today we call it the ancestral cow, but to our ancestors, It was a survival exam, and not everyone passed. Part 13. The woolly rhino, king of the frosted wind. It didn't roar. It didn't hunt. Colodonta antiquitatis, the woolly rhinoceros, simply walked in silence across the icy winds, like a frozen god sculpted from snow and time. Weighing up to 3 tons, over 4 meters long, its body was cloaked in 3 layers of thick fur, one layer even oily to repel moisture. Its nose, wide and flat, wasn't made for breathing hard, but for shoving snow aside to uncover frozen roots. It was the perfect creature of the Ice Age, unhurried, unbroken, enduring for tens of thousands of years. They lived in herds like modern elephants, migrating hundreds of kilometers with the rhythm of melting snow. But what made the woolly rhino unforgettable was how humans saw it. In the Chauvet caves, they painted it in charcoal, not as prey, but as a spirit. Hunched, slow, as solid as the mountains themselves. And then, they were gone. Not because of humans, not because of war, but because the ice melted, and the grass never returned. Part 14. Panthera leofossilis, the forgotten king. Before the African lion we know today, there was one larger, heavier, and quieter. Panthera leofossilis, the very first true king of the lions. Roaming Europe over 600,000 years ago, it stood nearly 1.5 meters tall, stretched over 3.5 meters long with its tail, bigger than any lion that followed. But unlike its modern savanna cousins, this lion didn't roar, it didn't form prides, it didn't display power, it hunted alone, silently tracking baby mammoths, giant deer, and ancient wild cattle. One leap, one bite, finished. Homo heidelbergensis walked the same lands. They may have fought, they may have feared, they may have drawn it in charcoal on cave walls, a memory of majesty that needed no sound. Panthera leofossilis disappeared, but not in defeat. It stepped aside in silence, leaving the throne to its roaring descendants. Art 15. Elephas antiquus, the giant of the green forest. Before Asian elephants wandered the jungles of India, before African elephants ruled the savanna, Europe had its own colossus, Elephas antiquus. Standing nearly 4 meters tall, weighing up to 13 tons, it moved through warm, humid forests stretching from Spain to the Caucasus, not as a warrior, but as a gentle traveler of the green world. Around its fossils, archaeologists didn't just find stone tools, they found reverence. Some skeletons were carefully arranged, ashes were present, the earth deliberately packed. These weren't hunting grounds, they might have been graves. To Homo heidelbergensis, Elephas may not have been just prey, but a god made flesh, the spirit of the forest, the embodiment of a world far larger than humankind. And when Elephas antiquus vanished, it wasn't just the extinction of a species, it was the fading of a memory, of a time when humans still bowed before nature. Art 16. Humans, the nameless ones. Before nations, before languages, before written history, there were us, not kings, not legendary hunters, just small beings wandering in the shadows of giants now extinct and predators still lurking. Homo sapiens, born in fear, surviving through memory, not as fast as saber-toothed cats, not as big as ancient elephants, not as strong as Neanderthals, but different, because we could dream. We dreamed of other worlds, of lost fathers, of spirits in the firelight. And from those dreams, we painted caves, told stories, gave names to things not yet seen. At Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, where the oldest Homo sapiens skulls were found, that first human left no kingdom, but they left something greater, the awareness that they were alive, and that no other species had done. We, humans, came last, but we remember the most. Today, we live among satellites, AI, and social networks, but deep inside each of us, there's still something wild, something unnamed, a forest instinct, a dream of fire, a faint echo from the past. when our ancestors trembled in the dark, but still told stories on stone. If you've ever felt your heart race in the deep woods or shivered at the sight of an ancient cave painting, you carry the memory of the nameless ones, the first people who dreamed beneath the night sky. Subscribe to this channel to uncover the true history of our species, a history not found in books, but carved in blood and bone. Because if we don't tell these stories, no one will remember we ever existed.